There is a question that I've been asking myself a lot lately. Why is it that two people can go through the exact same experience and come out completely differently? Think about it. Two colleagues receive the same feedback from their boss. One listens, goes home, has dinner with the family, sleeps peacefully, and shows up the next morning ready to improve. The other one can't stop thinking about it. The words keep playing in their mind. Maybe he doesn't think I'm good enough, or maybe I disappointed everyone, or maybe I shouldn't have spoken at all. Same meeting, same feedback, same words, completely different experience. Why? For years, I thought the answer was personality. Some people are emotionally stronger, some people are more confident, some people are simply born resilient. But the more people I meet, the less I believe that. I don't think it's about strength. I think it's about capacity. There are days when the smallest things irritate you. Someone cuts you off in traffic and suddenly you are angry. Your child spills a glass of milk and you lose your patience. Your partner asks a simple question and you snap. And then a week later, the exact same things happen. But this time, you smile, you laugh, you don't react at all. So, what changed? The child didn't change, the traffic didn't change, your partner didn't change, you changed. Or maybe your capacity changed. I remember talking to someone who said, I don't know what's wrong with me. Earlier, I could handle so much. Now, even the smallest things overwhelm me. I wonder, have you ever felt that? Not because life became harder, but because somehow you became tired, emotionally tired, mentally tired, even physically. It's like your system quietly whispers, bus or nahi. And then there is one more email, one more phone call, one more responsibility, one more difficult conversation, and suddenly it feels like everything is too much. People often say you're overreacting, but I don't think that's true. I think you are overflowing. Imagine you're carrying a backpack. At first, it's empty. Then life starts adding things: a disappointment, a heartbreak, a failed interview, a difficult boss, financial stress, a parent's expectations, a relationship that ended without closure, a dream you quietly gave up and nobody even knew about it. None of these experiences look heavy on their own, but years later, you have been carrying them for so long, you don't even notice the weight anymore. Until one day, someone adds one tiny stone, and that's the day you say, I can't do this anymore. People look at the stone and say, why are you reacting so much? But they never saw the backpack. I think that's what happens with emotional capacity. We keep blaming the last stone, the last comment, the last disagreement, the last disappointment, but rarely do we ask, what have I been carrying all this time? You know what's fascinating? When people come to me, they almost never ask, how do I increase my emotional capacity? They ask, why do I keep getting triggered? Why do I overthink? Why do I get anxious before every meeting? Why can't I speak up? Why do I keep people pleasing? Different questions, same root. Because every one of those questions is saying, why does this feel bigger than it should? And I don't think there is anything wrong with you. I really don't. I think your body is simply telling you, I've been carrying too much for too long. You know, I often think we have misunderstood what emotional strength actually is. We've been taught what strength means: not crying, not getting affected, moving on quickly, keeping it together, being the strong one in the family, being the reliable one, being the responsible one, the one who always says, I'm okay, I'm fine. But I wonder, what if that's not strength at all? What if strength is not about carrying more, but about knowing what was never yours to carry? Because here's something I've noticed: the people I admire the most aren't the ones who never feel. They are the ones who remain connected to themselves, even when life becomes uncomfortable. They don't rush, they don't panic, they don't immediately believe every fearful thought that appears. They pause, they breathe, they stay curious. Not because life is easier for them, but because somewhere along the way they have created a little more room inside themselves. And that room changes everything. I want you to imagine a house, not a luxurious house, just a small home. Now imagine every room is filled up with old furniture, broken chairs, boxes that nobody has opened in years, things that should have been thrown away, but somehow stayed. Now tell me, if a friend suddenly arrives with a beautiful gift, where will you keep it? There isn't any space. Sometimes I think we try to live like that. We keep carrying yesterday's disappointments, last year's criticism, old guilt, unfinished conversations, and then we wonder why joy doesn't stay, why appreciation feels uncomfortable, why love feels difficult to receive. It's not because we don't deserve it, it's because there is no room. And maybe that's what capacity really is, not becoming stronger, not becoming tougher, simply creating space inside yourself to experience life without immediately becoming overwhelmed. And I think this is where our body has been trying to help us all along. One of the things that fascinates me is this. Whenever something happens in our life, our body always knows before our mind does. Think about last time you were really nervous. Maybe before an interview, or before a difficult conversation, or before walking onto stage. What happened first? Did your thoughts change first? Or did your breathing become shallow? Did your shoulders tighten? Was your stomach in knots? Did your jaw clench? Our body is always the first one to know. The mind simply arrives later and starts creating a story. Have you ever received a message that simply said, "Can we talk?" Bas. Three words, nothing else. And suddenly the heart starts beating faster. You haven't even had the conversation. Nothing has happened. But your body is already preparing for something, a disaster. Why? Because your body is not only responding only to today, it's responding to everything it's learned from yesterday and from years before. Maybe those three words remind you of a difficult relationship. Maybe they remind you of childhood. Or maybe they remind you of a moment when a conversation changed your life. The body remembers even when the mind forgets. That's why I don't like calling people overreactive. I think it's unfair because what looks like an overreaction is often an old wound meeting a new situation. And if we don't understand that, we end up judging ourselves. Why am I like this? Why can't I be normal? Why does everybody else handle it so easily? Maybe they don't. Maybe their backpack simply has different things inside it. A few years ago, I stopped asking people, "What's wrong with you?" Instead, I became curious. What has your body been carrying? That question changes everything because suddenly you're no longer broken. You're simply carrying a story. And stories can be understood, they can be rewritten. They don't have to become your future. There is another misunderstanding that I see all the time. People think emotional capacity means becoming someone who can tolerate more pain. I don't. In fact, I think this is one of the biggest myths because if all we are doing is increasing our capacity to tolerate suffering, then what's the point? I don't want you to become somebody who simply survives better. I want you to become someone who lives better. There is a difference, a huge difference. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed some people struggle to receive a compliment? You tell them, "You did an amazing job." Immediately they say, "No, no, it wasn't me." Or, "I just got lucky. It wasn't that good." Have you noticed that? Or someone genuinely loves them and they spend all their energy wondering, what if they leave? Or life gives them an opportunity and instead of feeling excited, they feel terrified. They feel terrified. Do you see? Capacity isn't only about pain, it's also about joy, it's also about success, it's also about love, it's also about visibility, it's also about sometimes people don't reject happiness because they don't want it. They reject it because their nervous system has never experienced it before. And unfamiliar often feels unsafe. Think about a child. A healthy child is naturally curious. They touch everything, they climb, they explore, they ask 1,000 questions, not because somebody taught them curiosity, but because curiosity is our natural state. And then life happens. Somebody laughs at them, somebody says, "Don't do that, log kya kahenge, don't speak so loudly, be careful, don't make mistakes, don't fail." Slowly, exploration becomes hesitation. Curiosity becomes caution. Wonder becomes worry. And one day, without even realizing it, we stop experiencing life. We start managing it as if it's a. I don't think that's what we are here for. I don't think life gives us this extraordinary body, this incredible mind, and a beautiful heart so we could become experts at surviving. I think we are here to experience life, to create, to connect, to fall in love, to laugh so hard that our stomachs hurt, to stand in front of the ocean and feel small, to travel somewhere where we have never been, to begin again, to forgive, to dance, to cry, to build something meaningful, to say, "This is who I really am." But none of this is possible if every ounce of our energy is spent carrying. And that is why, for me, emotional capacity isn't the destination, it's the doorway. Because every little space that you create inside of yourself becomes space for something else, a new conversation, or a new relationship, or a new dream, new version of you. Maybe that is why this work matters, not because it helps us avoid pain, but because it helps us become available for more of life. And maybe this is why I've stopped asking people, "How do I become stronger?" Because strength can become another prison. Because strength can become another prison. You keep carrying more, doing more, tolerating more, smiling more, until one day everyone tells you how strong you are, and your body quietly whispers, "I'm exhausted." I don't think we are here to become stronger. I think we are here to become more spacious. There is a difference. Imagine standing beside the river. If you throw a small stone in a tiny glass of water, everything is disturbed. The whole glass shakes. But throw that same stone into a wide river. The river simply makes space. The stone is still there. The river didn't deny it. It didn't pretend that it didn't pretend that it wasn't real. It simply had the capacity to hold it without losing its own nature. Maybe emotional capacity is a little like that. Life doesn't stop throwing stones. Criticism will still come, failure will still come, people will misunderstand you, plans will fall apart, relationships will change, loss will visit all of us. The question is not, can I avoid these experiences? The question is, can I become a little more like the river or an ocean if you want to? And here's something beautiful that I've noticed. As people's emotional capacity grows, they don't just react less, they begin to receive more. More laughter, more intimacy, more honesty, more creativity, more silence, more beauty. It's almost as if life was always knocking on the door, but there wasn't simply enough room inside to welcome it. Have you ever gone on a holiday and suddenly felt like a different person? You smiled more, you laughed more, you noticed the sunsets and the sunrises, you spoke differently, you were patient, present, alive, and then you came back home. And within 3 days, you felt like your old self again. Looking forward to the next vacation. Have you ever wondered why? Was it the beach, the mountains, the hotel? Maybe. But I think something else happened. For a few days, your mind wasn't carrying yesterday. Your body wasn't bracing for tomorrow. For those few precious moments, you had space. And in that space, life entered. Maybe that is why we all long for these moments, not because we want to escape life, but because we want to remember what it feels like to truly be in it. Sometimes people ask me, what is the goal of body voice? And my answer keeps becoming simpler. It's not to become emotionally perfect. It's not to eliminate anxiety. It's not to stop feeling the pain. Those are beautiful outcomes, but they are not the destination. The destination is a life that feels fully lived, a life where your body no longer spends all its energy protecting you. So it finally has the freedom to support you, to create, to connect, to explore, to express, to love, to rest, to begin again. I often think about children, not because children don't experience pain, they do, but because they recover into curiosity so quickly. One moment they are crying, 5 moments later, they're chasing a butterfly. Somewhere along the way, many of us stopped returning to curiosity. We became experts at returning to worry. Maybe emotional capacity is simply learning to return to curiosity again, to look at life and ask, I wonder, instead of immediately saying, I know how this ends, because certainty often comes from fear. Curiosity comes from possibility. So the next time life feels overwhelming, don't begin by asking, how do I fix myself? Maybe ask a gentler question. What has my body been carrying? What needs compassion? What no longer belongs to me? And perhaps the most important question of all, what kind of life is waiting for me once I create a little more space inside? Because I truly believe your emotional capacity determines the size of your life. Not because bigger capacity means less pain, but because bigger capacity means more room for love, more room for difficult truths, more room for dreams that scare you, more room for uncertainty and curiosity, more room for joy, more room for love and intimacy, more room for awe, and more room for the life itself. If this conversation stayed with you, I'd love for you to sit with this one question today. Where in my life have I become smaller because my capacity became full? Don't answer it immediately. Carry it with you. Notice what comes up. Your body has a way of answering questions when we stop rushing it. And if you would like to and if you would like to explore this work more deeply, I'd love to invite you to my upcoming live masterclass where we explore emotional capacity, the body, the voice, and how to create space for a life that feels deeply meaningful. And if you're looking for a more personal support, you can also book a one on one clarity call with me. You'll find all the links in the description below. And you can always connect with me on Instagram. I've linked down the handle below. Until next time, take care of your body, trust your voice, and remember, life doesn't become bigger because the world changes. Life becomes bigger because your capacity to experience it does.